Off the Record with Michael Landsberg is brought to you by the Keg Steakhouse and Bar. For great steaks, good friends, see you tonight.
The wrestling interviews we do all depend on how much our guests understand the business of wrestling. The fans don't want BS, they actually resent it. That's why I'm so pumped about today's show, because Paul Heyman is known to be one of the sharpest guys in the world when it comes to pro wrestling. I'm also sure that he'll try to snow us at least a couple of times. Is that true, Paul?
Definitely.
Okay, well, let's see if you're going to start the snow job right away. Let's talk about the man that was the driving force, I think, behind your company for a lot of years. And his name, of course, is Stone Cold Steve Austin. You may be one of the guys that actually found him way back when. Why did he leave the company, and is it true that he left because he would not do a work that he would not lay down for Brock Lesnar?
I think it had a lot more to do with whether Stone Cold Steve Austin wanted to work with Brock Lesnar or not. It was brewing for a long time, and Austin was clearly getting very pissed off. And Steve is a guy that's made a lot of money, and he made enough money now where I think he could probably live off the interest for the rest of his life and never touch the principal. And that's a dangerous guy to do business with, because he has the ability one day to say, screw you, I'm going home. And
which he did, right?
Which is exactly what he did.
Now, he had a sense that he was going to be phased out, phased down. Was that a legitimate fear that he had?
I don't think so. I don't think so, but I don't know really what prompted Steve to walk out. I don't know what really happened, and I don't think anybody really knows besides Steve and Vince McMahon. He
was unhappy with the booking, I think. I think that's a fair conclusion. That may not have been the whole story, but he didn't like the way things were evolving with his character. He didn't like NWO.
Clearly didn't like a lot of things about the company, and Steve also was frustrated with communication. And Steve was also frustrated with a lot of things involving the usage of his wife, Deborah. He just was very, very frustrated. And he wasn't getting satisfaction with his concerns. His concerns were not being assuaged to his satisfaction, to the point where one day he was flying to Atlanta. He got into Atlanta and he said, you know what? I'm going home. I don't want this. I don't need this. And I think also it had a lot to do with the dynamic between Steve and Vince McMahon. Because Vince loves confrontation. If Vince were on your show...
And he has been many times.
This is how Vince would be.
Right.
Vince enjoys the spirit of confrontation. And Steve didn't give Vince the one thing that I think Vince would want if Steve were to walk out, which is the right to say, screw you, goodbye, or hey, let's work this out. But Vince never had the chance to say either one of those to Steve, because Steve simply took his ball.
But did Vince blow it? When I say Vince, I mean the WWE, because the company has struggled in a lot of levels right now, and he is a huge money guy, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Did they not do enough to keep him happy?
It's a double-edged sword here, because I don't know if maybe that character needed some time off. I mean, that was a real strong character that had a lot of crazy things to do. And once you do all these wild, crazy
but you know
things,
what? I got to say, Paul, that the company doesn't have a lot of stars. You had The Rock and you had Stone Cold, and now without those guys, the company is not as strong as it was before. So I think you got to look back and say, you know what? We should have kept the guy happy, even if he was a pain in the ass, and even if he was making unfair demands. I mean, sports teams do that all the time. They acquiesce to the guys that they know make them the money.
But you see, I can't tell you that Steve was a pain in the ass, because he was never a pain in the ass to me. And I did a lot when Steve was doing the what, beer, what, cerveza, what. A lot of the what stuff I worked with Steve on. Not exclusively. I was one of many that did. But I never had a problem with Steve. I never found him to be a pain in the ass, and I never found him to be demanding. And I don't know if his concerns were unwarranted, and I don't know if he was out of line, because I never found him to be myself. I think, again, the situation here was that here was a character that had a 4 or 5 year run. Where do you go with the character at that time? And sometimes it's very hard for a company, especially a company that has such a loyal audience, to say, we're going to put this character on the shelf for 6 months because it needs to be freshened up.
So you have huge credibility when you talk about that, because you are the head writer on SmackDown.
Well, I'm the lead writer.
Okay.
The head writer is Vince McMahon.
Okay, well, you know what? We'll talk about that and the relationship between the lead writer and the head writer in a second. But I want to stay on the Stone Cold thing, because you're talking about characters. Triple H said on a show that you have, Confidential, that he would not bring back Stone Cold to the WWE because he could not be trusted. Do you agree with that? Would you bring him back? Because personally, I think it's going to happen. It's only inevitable. But what do you think?
Well, it depends on your perspective. And I own my own company for 7 years. And
ECW.
ECW. And excuse my language, I swallowed a lot of because it was right for business to swallow the shit. And Vince McMahon, to his ultimate credit, will put his ego and his personal conflicts with a man aside if it's right for business. If Bret Hart was right for business to bring back, he would bring Bret Hart back like that. It's Stone Cold Steve Austin, who pissed Vince off by walking out there. There is no greater insult to Vince than to walk out on Vince and not even say goodbye or not even say, screw you, I'm walking out on
Because when Bret left after the Survivor Series, he had that. He had heat that he could build on. He could vilify himself, which he did ultimately. But what you're saying is Stone Cold left the wrong way, which was the quiet way.
No, I don't know if it's the wrong way.
According to Vince.
It was the most insulting. I think Steve knew what he was doing. I don't think it was a temper tantrum.
You're the master of the storylines. I got to say, and you always deflect. When I met you, I said, it's great to see you. You're going to be great. And you said, why? I mean, you're all about that. But the truth is, you understand what the wrestling fans want. Do they want Stone Cold right now?
Yes. And if they are willing to pay to see him, I think Vince would have him back in a heartbeat.
So why don't they want Rock then? Because the value of Rocky to the company has clearly been lessened by his association with Hollywood. Do they just not see him as one of theirs anymore?
Yes. I think that's... But then again, that also makes a great heel. I mean, if The Rock were to come out and start talking about how he's only here for a couple of days because he's so busy to film his next movie, and he really doesn't have a lot of time to share with you fans today because The Rock has to go do his movie.
Because you understand the fan fanaticism, because that's what ECW was built on, right?
Totally.
And you were all built on guys who had sold out, right? Because is it not true that the crowd would chant, you sold out, when they learned that guys were going from ECW to WWF at the time?
We had a real cult following that was very passionate about our product.
Right, and you understand that. So, and they perceive now, right, that Rock has sold out because he's gone mainstream, right? And that's hard to get back, isn't it?
Well, but then again, that's also a great marketing thing for Rock. I mean, if The Rock were to come back as a babyface, I think he'd have a problem. Except for the first night. First time they see him, they're going to, oh, thank God he's back. We love him. He's the savior. And then but he's going to do a movie. But that makes such a great heel. Because The Rock then, and he's an articulate guy, can talk down to the audience. And once he starts talking down to the audience and starts reminding them how big he is and how much of a movie star he is and how much money he makes and his lifestyle.
I'm loving this. He's Paul Heyman. He is the lead writer from SmackDown, not to be confused with the head writer. And is there confusion between lead and head writer? We'll talk about that when OTR returns.